Hello. I remember when back in 1939, we lived on the Bayou.
Now, where was the Bayou?
The Bayou was a run around Crystal Hill Road. It runs through crop fields of crops. Let's see.
Can you tell us where today that might be located?
It would be located close to the KOA campground on
Okay.
Crystal Hill Road now. My daddy farmed some land, or he rented it from a policeman who lived in North Little Rock. We stayed there approximately 5 years. But one year he had planted corn on both sides of the Bayou, because part of the land on the other side was the land, on the other side of the Bayou was part of the land that he had rented. So, the corn did great, and we had lots of ears of corn on the stalks. But we had a neighbor,
What was his name?
Mr. Eugene Young, who owned property next to the property we rented. He was a pretty wealthy guy. He had many pieces of ground, but he decided he would go into the hog business. So he bought hogs, and he had employees drive a dump truck with the garbage from the hotels in Little Rock to feed his hogs.
Very nice.
So the hogs stayed at their home pretty well. But some way the word got to somebody that worked for Mr. Young that he needed to make a trail of corn to the land that we had rented, so the hogs would be sure and find it.
And they did?
And they did, and they were destroying it, the corn crop.
Well, then what happened?
So my daddy always had a gun and always had some dogs in the yard. So he talked to a neighbor, Mr. Cato, and they decided they would kill them a hog apiece and see if they could get someone to keep the hogs over on Young's property. So he took his dogs and went down there to the cornfield, and he shot a hog. He shot a hog. Mr. Cato, he also shot a hog. But Mr. Cato did not have a gun, so he borrowed his son's gun and immediately returned it. So one evening after the hogs had been killed, Dad was sitting outside, leaned back in a straight chair against the side of the house in the shade, reading his evening paper. Up drives a police car. Well, they come in the yard and began to talk to Daddy. They said, Do you have a gun, sir? He said, yes, I have a gun. He said, did you kill a hog? One of Mr. Young's hogs. He said, yes, I did. They said, well, you have to go with us
Where was that?
immediately to jail.
Huh.
So Daddy asked if he could change clothes, and they told him yes. And he had already eaten his even meal and took his teeth out for the night. So he changed clothes, but he forgot his teeth.
How long was he in jail, Mama?
He was in jail about 2 days.
What did Grandma do?
So the morning when the jitneys began to run, my mother caught herself a paid ride into town in a jitney.
Okay.
Now, Marianne didn't know what jitneys in my language was talking about, so I'll tell you. It was a black man in a big car, 2-seated car, nice looking car. And he would stop and you could get in his car and he would take you wherever you wanted to go.
Like a cab service. But y'all called it a jitney.
Yeah, it was like a cab service, but we always called it a jitney.
So Grandma got a jitney and went to town.
She went to town early, and she went straight to the Twin City Bank. We had rented previously from the owner of the bank, who was Mr. Tuff, Tuff, and he was president of Twin City Bank. So she met Mr. Tuff at the bank and told him what had happened. And so he told his assistant, the vice president, to get on the phone and get John Tompkins out of that jail. And so he did. So the jail was at the foot of the Broadway Bridge. So he had no money. So he had to walk across the Main Street Bridge, down Broadway, till he got to Levy. And Mother was standing on pins and needles, wondering if he's coming or not. So he got there, and they got them another jitney and went home. Well, the case went to court. It turned out that he had admitted he killed a hog, so they charged him $100 for a hog back in 1939.
Wow.
Okay, they also warned Mr. Young to keep his hogs out of his neighbor's cornfields.
Well, what about Mr. Cato? What happened with Mr. Cato?
They went to see Mr. Cato the same night they come to see Daddy. And they asked Mr. Cato if he had a gun. And he said, no, I don't own a gun. So since Mr. Cato did not own a gun, they figured Daddy killed both hogs. And Daddy never told them the difference. So Mr. Cato went free over it.
Mm-hmm.
But he was a nice neighbor. He paid half of the fine.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
So that's the kind of neighbors we had on Crystal Hill Road.
Way back.
Way back in the
And
30s
you were how old then, do you think, Mom?
The best of my memory, I was about 10 years old.
Yeah. Well, that's a nice story. Thanks, Mom.